Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Tina. It looks like the recording has already been started, so I think we'll give everybody a minute and proceed. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. We have a lot of people registered for the session today, so we're going to give everyone just a few more minutes to join, and then we'll get started.
Hello. I'll join, I guess. Hello, hello.
All right. Well, it looks like
Hey,
we've
Chuck.
quite a few people in the session today. Can everyone hear me all right? This is Jennifer Courtney with SK Soft.
Yes, I can.
Great. We are recording this session. So just also wanted to let you know that we also have Tina Ash and Chuck Schrader on the line today. Tina will be covering off on our P card solution. Tina, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Tina Ash, and I am a solution architect and product manager here at SK Soft.
Tina. Chuck will be covering off on our credit card reconciliation solution. Chuck, would you mind doing a quick introduction as well?
Hi there. Yeah, I am Chuck Schrader, and I am a senior solution architect here at SK Soft.
Thanks, Chuck. On May the 20th, we will be showcasing our payment factory automation, customer reimbursement, and bank-to-bank transfer solution. As you can see on the screen.
Are you sharing, Jennifer?
Oh, well, I thought I was. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Oh, sorry about that. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes, I
I
can.
can. Yep.
Oh, great. So on May the 20th, we will be showcasing our payment factory automation, customer reimbursement, and bank-to-bank transfer module. As you can see on the screen, we have had several previous webinars. And if you would like to request a copy of a previous recording, you can email Kelly Kaczynski. Her email address is at the bottom of the screen. So on this screen, you will see the various modules that make up our Treasury Automation Suite. Today's session will focus on the two highlighted modules, P-card and credit card reconciliation. Before we dive in, we also wanted to let you know that we host weekly live demos of our core modules. On Wednesdays, we cover ARE settlement, credit card advantage, and e-pay advantage. On Thursdays, we feature our AP EFT Plus module, positive pay, and electronic bank reconciliation. If you're interested in learning more about any of these modules, I'll drop the registration link for the weekly demos here in the chat. I hope you can join us for an upcoming session. A little bit of housekeeping to cover before we get started. If you have questions during today's presentation, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll address them at the end of the session. We will also send out a link to the recording of today's webinar for your convenience. And then if you have for additional information or questions after the session, please contact sales@sksoft.com. With that, let's get started and I'll turn it over to Tina.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So like Jennifer said, today we're going to go over P card and credit card reconciliation. And we know there's often confusion around when to use P card versus credit card reconciliation. So before we dive into the demo, we wanted to take just a moment to walk through the key differences and some similarities between the two. So let's start with the primary purpose of each module. The P card module is designed to import, accrue, and reconcile employee or department level procurement card expenses, often referred to as P card. These are purchases made using corporate cards that are managed through a third-party system. Chuck?
On the credit card recon. So that is reconciliation of gateway provider settlement statements to incoming customer credit cards. So that's customer payments that you're receiving in. On the formats type supported, on the credit card recon side, we have the limited ones. So like CSV files is the typical ones we get in. It can support fixed length. And we had some gateway specific ones that were developed over time, and those continue to build out. You see there the 5, I guess, that we have listed already. But again, we do build those out as the requests come in.
So for P card, we support the flat files and CSV formats. And you can there's configuration options that will map these to the exports from the third party or P card systems. For matching logic, both modules use a rule-based matching engine, which gives you options to match by transaction reference, date, and amount. When it comes to discrepancy management, both modules help you quickly identify unmatched items so your team can investigate and resolve them before final reconciliation. So who are these solutions ideal for? P card is a great fit for accounts payable teams looking to streamline the import and reconciliation of employee purchasing cards, especially when approvals and coding are done in a third-party system.
And credit card recon is for finance team, again, reconciling incoming credit card payments. So reconciling those merchant statements to those incoming credit card payments and eventually reconciling it to your deposit that you would get in your depository account. So hopefully this, I know a lot of times during the pre-sales activities, there's questions, they see P card or credit card reconciliation on there, and those get a little bit confused. So hopefully, especially if you get the recording after the fact, this helps kind of, especially if you're a partner, helps your clients make a good decision on which is the right fit or if both are the correct fit for them.
Okay. So we're going to start with P card. So our P card module simplifies the entire life cycle of P card expense management. So from initial recording to month-end accruals and all the way to reconciling that statement. So we'll walk through the 3 main components in this process flow you guys can see on the screen. So the recording process begins after a user has coded and their expenses have been approved in their third-party system. So at that point, the credit card provider, they'll generate a file, often including transaction images. Actually, the images will be a separate file, and they'll place it in a designated location. Bank Fabric will pick up that file, and then the process continues with the file being imported into D365 via reoccurring batch job. The journal will be automatically created using the offset account specified in TAS parameters. The transaction images would be attached to the journal lines. And if you have auto posting enabled in your Treasury Automation Suite parameters, then that journal will be posted. Next, we'll look at our accruals. So this step is useful for month-end close, especially when you have unapproved or partially coded expenses in a third-party system. So that third-party system, again, it generates that file of unapproved transactions and drops it into a designated location. Bank Fabric will again retrieve the file, And then a user is going to initiate the journal creation process by entering a posting date, a reversing date, and accrual format. And then that's going to trigger the creation of a standard D365 reversing journal, which can be auto-posted based on your setup. And then lastly is the reconciliation piece. So at the end of the statement cycle, this process will help you identify any discrepancies between what was recorded and what's on the actual P-card statement. So once again, it starts with that file, the P-card provider generating that statement file at the end of the billing cycle and dropping it into a designated location where BankFabric will go and pick that up. And then it's going to be imported into D365 via a reoccurring batch job. Transactions from the statement are going to be matched against previously recorded P-card transactions using that rule-based engine. And any unmatched items will be flagged for user exception handling. Once all lines are matched, the statement will be reconciled. And this statement reconciliation does not require a D365 bank account. So we have one more PowerPoint, and then we'll get into the system. So our solution does offer flexible configuration options, allowing you to import files to be tailored to match the exports from the third-party system. As Chuck and I both stated on our different modules, we support the CSV and the flat files. With the P-card recording, you can post transactions either using a vendor or ledger account as the offset. That's all defined in the TAS parameters. Your expenses can be allocated to ledger accounts or project accounts, or excuse me, projects, not project accounts. It is important to note that full image support is only for the recording process where the images are imported and attached to the journal lines. So we'll see that in just a minute. The accruals and statement reconciliation do not include image support, as those steps primarily focus on financial accuracy and discrepancy resolution. So now we'll get into D365. And let's look at some of the parameters and how they control how these processes behave. And you'll see here we have 3 different sections under our P-card parameters: journal setup, which is the recording of those transactions, the accruals, and the statement. So on these top 2, I'm going to kind of cover journal and accruals together because they have a lot of similarities, and then I'll split into the differences. But here you can see you can define which D365 journal to use for both the imported as well as the accruals. And it can be whatever journal you want, but it must be of the type daily. So in the general ledger journal setup, it's of the type daily. So for those of you familiar with that, it means it's going to land in your general ledger module. You also have the option to auto post, and I have that turned on for both of mine today for this purposes of demo today. In accruals down here, you can specify your accrual account. So this is particularly useful when you have expenses that are not coded in the third-party system. So you still want to accrue them to maybe like expenses, but you just don't have that them coded yet. So you still need to get those coded. In the recording, you can see here my offset account type can be ledger or journal, or ledger or vendor, sorry. So that means I can either hit it to a credit card clearing, generally is where it's going to be if it's a ledger, or a vendor account. So maybe American Express or whoever your credit card processor is, that would be the vendor account you would choose there. Okay. For reconciliation, down here, some of the parameters we have the option to match off date and amount. By default, we match off transaction reference. So there's not a parameter for that. That just happens by default. We can match on date and amount. Mine is disabled for today's demo. You can do duplicate matching for date and amount. So if I'm matching off date and amount and I have the same date and amount, do I want to match or not? And auto reconcile. So if everything matched and is good, should I go ahead and auto reconcile that? If this is selected and it can't auto reconcile, it will still try to and just let you know that that auto reconciliation was not successful. Okay. So now I'll walk you through the P card recording process or P card transactions here. So this is typically brought in via a reoccurring batch job. I am going to go ahead and pull this in now, by running that batch job immediately. So this way you don't have to just take my word for it that this was imported and did everything we're saying it did. So we'll give that just a second. There we go. So it's in draft now. In a second, it should probably say something like pending journal creation. There we go. And then in a minute, we should get that completed in just a second. So while we're waiting on that, let's go ahead here and look at our imported transactions. And this will show us all the transactions that were imported in from this file. And a couple of things to note here. You can see I have ledger accounts as well as project accounts in here. So this project has the project category. I do not use project activities, but if I was using project activities, I could have also selected that project activity here. The other thing is if down here, you'll see I don't have the ability to view an image because there was not one attached to this line or linked to this line with a reference. This one does have it, so I can click View Image. Now, I have a weird parameter in my Chrome that I need to look at that is just downloading it right now instead of displaying it, but you'll see here, there is my image. If I go back, let's just do a quick refresh. I can see it's completed now. If I look at my import history, I can see my journal was auto-created and auto-posting. If the journal fails posting, it would say journal auto-posting failed. And then when I drill down into the journal, there would be a log here. We're using that standard D365 history, the log history here that would tell you why that journal failed posting. Right, so maybe my period was closed or something else. I have a bad combination there. But I can drill down into my lines here. And when I do that, if I have an image, again, I can click View Image and it will pop or it'll pull up that image as well. So that image that is tied to this transaction is carried all the way through down to the journal entry. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to my recording screen or my screen here, my imported transactions. One other thing I want to mention here is you'll see this bottom line has a journal creation error. And this is where my transactions all imported in successfully, but there was an issue importing in that journal, or not importing, creating that journal. If I want to see what that error was, I can click Error Log. And I can see here I have an issue with my dimension 022 is business unit and it does not exist. But maybe it should exist and maybe somebody accidentally didn't left it off the account structure or something. So I want to go into D365 and I can correct that error and then I can click Create Journal. Okay, so this will, otherwise you would have to fix the error in D365, go into Bank Fabric, move this file from archive to the root folder and then re-import it again. So this will save you a few steps if it is actually an error within D365. So maybe something's just not set up correctly. Okay. So now we can move on to our accruals piece. Unless you guys have any questions, like Jennifer said, the chat is open. So if you have any questions on this part now, you can just let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the accruals. Okay. So let's say we're at month end, but not all our expenses have been approved or they have not been encoded. So we're going to use an accrual process to capture those because we need to get our expenses in the correct month. So we have under periodic process, we have a dialog box here, P card accrual. And you'll see it remembers everything I did from the last time I ran this, but I'm going to select my accrual date. For me, I'm going to use April as the month I'm closing, a little late, but that's fine. So I'm going to pick the last day of April, and I'm going to reverse that on the first day of the next month. And my format's already selected, but if it wasn't, I would go ahead and select it. You can run this in batch. So let's say you have a large volume of transactions out there and you don't want to sit here and wait for that to run. For me today, I'm just going to go ahead and run it here on my machine. So I'm going to click OK. And this is going to retrieve that file from Bank Fabric and it's going to create a reversing journal. Now, just gonna say, depending on my setup, my journal may post automatically. And you can see here that is what it is trying to do right now. So my journal did not post automatically because I have some intercompany transactions. But let's go look at under P-card, look at my P-card accruals here. Here's the one I imported in just now. Again, I can still see my transactions here. But what you will notice is I don't have all those offset accounts. So when we're recording it, we have to have all those offset accounts so it'll know where to debit those expenses. Here, these weren't coded in my third-party system, so there's nothing for the file. There's nothing in the file, right? I have some in here. So this one does have an expense and this one does as well, but the bottom 3 lines are all blank. And these 2 are intercompany. So if I go into my imported history, I can see my journal was auto-created and my posting failed. And then we'll get to see that log message that I told you about. So we have the log flag checked here. When I go into history, there we go. I'll see my intercompany due to, due from is missing. So if I go into my lines, we will see my offset account is using that accrual account, accrued purchases account from my parameters. So that is getting picked up. Now I would either have to correct my offset company. This came from my file. I probably had just a bad data there. This did not come from my TAS parameters on the offset company. So sorry, there is a question. I think everybody can see it. So you're not using Bank Fabric, but local storage. So P-card does require Bank Fabric because the format is configured in Bank Fabric. It does. You don't have to use Bank Fabric for your other, I believe, you're using local storage or File Hub. File Hub, yeah. So you can use Bank Fabric just for the P-card process. You don't have to use it for all of your modules. And then, eventually if you wanted to convert everything over to Bank Fabric, you could, but you don't have to make the full switch to Bank Fabric for P-card, but you do have to use Bank Fabric for P-card. So that is the accrual process. Now, this is just a journal, standard D365, so I'm not going to fix this one, but if you guys have any questions on accruals, let me know. I do want to say that the accruals process is optional and it runs independently from the recording or the reconciliation. Now, those 2 pieces are tied together because we need to reconcile what we've recorded. So since that is the last piece, is that reconciliation, we'll go ahead and start that. So again, this normally would come in via a reoccurring batch job, but I am going to import it in now. Oh, actually it imported in when I ran my other one. So just imported in when I did my recording. We'll see. Look at my transactions here. I can see all my transactions from my statement line in here. And my imported history here will show me that it was auto-created. It did not auto-reconcile or try to auto-reconcile because my parameters are not set to auto-reconcile. Okay, so let's go look at my statement here. By default, same as those of you who are familiar with our other reconciliation modules, which again do require a bank account and P-card doesn't, but it always filters by not matched. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to all just so we can see everything that's out there. And then I am going to select my file format as well as my statement. The top one. There we go. And you can see here, I have 8 out there that were imported and 1 was unmatched. And it is going to flow to the top, right? So it is going to be that red line at the top. Now, normally if I'm reconciling this, I would not do this, but I just want to see how did this one know to match. I can click transaction reconciliation rules, and I can see this one matched off reference number and amount. So this one matched off reference number and amount. The other option would be date and amount, which mine would not match off of because I do not have that parameter selected to match off date and amount. Okay. So if I look at this 5.9, I can click transaction reconciliation, or even let's say maybe my last, let's say my statement pulled in before my transactions. In that case, I could click match transactions. I don't expect anything to match because all of mine already matched. But you can go ahead and run that after the fact if for some reason the statement came in first, which in my case it didn't, but they were running at the same time. They're one after the other. But to reconcile this one, I'm going to click transaction reconciliation. And this section here is going to show me all of the P-card transactions I have using the format. So in my TAS parameters, I match this statement to the inbound format for those transactions. You can have multiple transactions, or excuse me, multiple formats if you need, but you would need to match them to the correct statement. So mine didn't match because of date and amount, because my transaction reference is not the same. You can see this one ends in POA and this one ends in 529, but my amount is $197 and my date is the same. So this one would have matched using date and amount, but I'm going to go ahead and select it here. And then I'm going to click match. And it brings me back to this screen because that was the only unmatched item I had. And so here now I can click reconcile statement and it will go ahead and reconcile that. So I was easily able to identify, wasn't a true discrepancy, but you're easily able to identify anything that did not match automatically and take action on that. Additionally, I'm just going to change this to all and apply my filter. So let's say, hopefully this didn't happen, but let's say I unmatched something, that one that I should have matched, that I manually matched, I matched it incorrectly. I can reverse my reconciliation here, and that is going to open this statement back up, where here I can remove that match. And again, it's going to put it back to the top because unmatched items always go to the top of the list. And then I can click on it and transaction reconciliation and match it to the correct item, which I had originally. So I'll go ahead and just rematch that one. Okay. Any questions on P-card, either the recording, the accrual, or the reconciliation piece? Okay, so we do have some survey questions. So Kelly is going to put these in the chat, and I will just go ahead and read them to you. So we do have 2 survey questions. One, does your company issue purchase cards or employee expense credit cards? And the second one, that's going to be a yes or no. And the second one is, does your company use the expense management module within D365? That's going to be a yes or no. And just so you know, the second one is because we are considering extending the P card to go to the expense management module instead of just the general journal. So Chuck, I am going to turn it over to you.
Okay. There was one question in chat that I tried to answer for you, Tina. I hope I answered it correctly, but the question was, where are these files staged? Can it be SharePoint or SFTP? I said we could either manually put them in a Bank Fabric folder, or Bank Fabric, if your provider does support an SFTP download, we can pull those automatically.
Yep.
Is that
that is correct. Yeah, so if your provider gives like SFTP credentials, we would go ahead and we can pull those in. It can also do that decryption if you have like PGP or any of that that you need on there. It can go ahead and do that as well.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yep. And I'll go back to one statement about the question on Bank Fabric. As Tina said, P-card does run through Bank Fabric, and you can put modules over to Bank Fabric one at a time, so you don't have to make a whole all or nothing move from File Hub. But just as a general statement, I'll add on to that there are other features and enhancements that are put in the product that are going through Bank Fabric as well. Just because of the connection mechanism we have there and the abilities that we can do in Bank Fabric that we can't do very easily through File Hub. So if you haven't made that move yet, you may want to consider start going down that path because there will be additional features coming out going forward that will require Bank Fabric as well. So if you listen to last week's demo, payment remit automation, that was also a brand new feature, but it's going through Bank Fabric as well. So just kind of one, not necessarily related to this specific webinar, but if you're not there yet, it would be a good idea to make plans to get to Bank Fabric. Again, a lot of the new features or new enhancements are leaning that way. So I'll go through the credit card recon piece here. So just an overall diagram. If you're familiar with bank rec, credit card recon works very, very similar. The idea with credit card recon is that the provider, your credit card, usually your gateway or your merchant provider, is giving you a statement that says this is your settlement. So that is the statement that's being retrieved. We're importing that credit card file. We're going to create a credit card statement. Again, that should match to a settlement that you're getting, and then use rule-based processing to try to match those to your customer payments, your credit card customer payments that were recorded. And the mapping rules and matching rules. So matching would try to match to existing things. You could use mapping rules for things like creating the fees automatically if you're getting like net deposits versus gross deposits. And you'll see here when I go to demo, the screen at the end, very, very similar to if you're familiar with our bank rec or what Tina just showed in the reconciliation for P-card. The screen, you'll have a reconciliation screen that lets you efficiently get through the exceptions and get a reconciled statement. So I am going to switch over to my share so we can see a few things here. And there are, hopefully you're seeing the screen, seeing the correct screen. Are you seeing the Tina or Kelly or Jennifer? Seeing an Excel spreadsheet?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. So before I kind of show in the product itself, we talk about credit card recon as part process, part product. And the part process is kind of how you set this up. So the way we set this up is normally we would have a separate bank account for all the credit card transactions. So a lot of times in this case, you can see it's called Adyen or authorized.net. We'll give a bank account. This is in Cash in Bank in D365. We'll name a bank account after a gateway or after your merchant provider who's ever giving you your settlement. And that is where all the credit card payments would get recorded. So they're not getting recorded in your depository account. We don't want all that noise over there. We have it going into their own account. And a depository account would be tied to cash. So that's a real bank account at a bank. So it's tied to cash. This would be tied to credit card clearing or a credit card receivable type of account in the ledger. So again, you're recording all your payments in here throughout the day. When you get your gateway statement in, your settlement statement in, then we really read that in like a bank statement file, but it's really a statement file for this quote bank account for your gateway bank account. So this is what's used to reconcile this account. Then when your depository account comes in, we are not going through normal bank rec today, but when your depository bank rec comes in, that's where you record your statement, or I'm sorry, your deposit. and you push the offset over to this other gateway bank account. So uh, the idea is, one, keeping all the noise in a separate account so that you're not getting a lump sum that you're trying to match to a whole bunch of transactions. So you kind of have two separate reconciliations going, but they're tied together. The other thing is, since you have this all separated here, it makes it pretty easy to see if you have a misplaced credit card transaction. Because in this gateway bank account, whatever your settlement time period is, if it's normally settled within 2 days or 1 day or 3 days, you really should never have something unreconciled in this account any older than that, because your settlement should always be covering everything that you thought was a credit card charge um, on the previous day. So this is an example of somebody that a provider that's giving you a net settlement. So before they even give you your settlement, they're taking some fees out and give you a net settlement. So when the statement comes in, these charges would match up to the payments that were recorded, and then we could calculate fees and calculate a net deposit and record that. So down at the bottom, it's kind of the same thing, but just a little different if you have gross deposits. So now you get a gross deposit. In this case, you'd record your gross deposit in your regular bank account, and your fee, if they reach back in and grab fees after the fact, you would grab those. And again, with regular bank reconciliation rules from Treasury Automation, you could record those fees and against the ledger account there. So depending on if you're getting net deposits or gross deposits, it might look like at one or two, the top diagram or the bottom diagram there. The key to making credit card recon work, and we get a lot of this on the initial inquiries, is really, are you getting a statement from your provider that ties to a settlement? So something here that ties to a settlement that you're getting in your bank account. Um, if not, then you can try to talk to one or the other parties. Typically, it's the gateway that either can get you a statement that is put together better, or that they do your settlements in a different way. So again, for this to be successful, and we had a lot of credit card recon inquiries, but for credit card recon to be successful, it's really making sure that your providers are giving you the information in a way that makes it easy to tie out to the bank account. And the other piece is, are they giving you a reference number? So when you're recording these transactions inside the system, make sure you're getting some kind of a reference number, especially if your transactions are not unique in terms of dollar amounts, because if you have a large volume of incoming credit card payments, or you have a lot of the same, so you have a lot of $30 sales or a lot of $50 sales or a lot of $250 sales, date and amount does not work very well if you don't have a distinct transaction. Usually what we do is whatever is kind of recording these transactions, if it's Treasury Automation's Credit Card Advantage, it records the authorization number in there in the payment reference. That's also something that comes in on your credit card, I'm sorry, on your gateway statement. So it's obvious, it's easy to tie out. If you have these coming in from a third party, again, make sure that something is going into the payment reference that's going to also appear on your statement. Just so we can kind of visualize what these statements, kind of a simple case many of the statements we get in are CSVs files. So this would be an example file we might get in. So when it reads the file in, you're kind of mapping the important fields when you set up the format and saying this is the amount and this is maybe a description. And this transaction ID, again, that's usually the auth number or some kind of unique identifier, is what you're mapping in to try to compare to a payment reference. The difference between this and reading a bank statement is the credit card recon can add virtual lines, because this really isn't a great in and of itself. So we add virtual lines at the bottom that, for instance, we add up the fees and generate the fee line down here and add up the deposit then, which is all these payments minus the fees, and get you that net settlement to, again, try to tie this out better to your eventual deposit. So I know we went over a lot there. Hopefully it's not too confusing.
So Chuck, there is a
Yeah.
question, for the gateway provider, do they usually have to customize or adjust the format and details to match this credit card reconciliation functionality?
Most times we can get a statement that matches. For the more complex ones, uh, Adyen and Teller and Heartland, they were not able to do that. Then we wrote formats specific to them, because the question you want to ask is, or the what you want to get is information, and I know this isn't a real word, but a data dumpish sort of format as you can. So not something pretty, but something that just dumps out raw data as straightforward as possible. If you have thing that's really meant for printing out and human consumption, versus electronic consumption, it's probably not going to work very well. So, so the answer is most do. And for the ones that don't, for several of those, again, those 5 that I've listed, we have gateway specific formats for those. But again, a lot of the common ones, they can give you something that looks like a data dump, and you really want something called a payout or a settlement type of file. Hopefully that answers that question. If not, we can follow up. Let me go to the product then. So we'll go inside the system. And let me get here. So file formats, like I said, that's where you would kind of map this out. You can see the 5 specific ones that I mentioned. Again, they didn't really have a CSV type that they could easily generate out of their systems, or they had more complex type of reporting. So we created specific ones for those. For the delimited ones, if you pick one of these, the field mapper goes away because, again, those are more complex. If you're doing a simple CSV, then you just tell us which columns that you want to bring in. Again, the key one being, what is this reference number? Typically, it's like the auth number or transaction ID that you want to import to tie out. So you bring this in, you attach it to that credit card bank account, just like you would a bank rec format to a regular bank account. And then there's some default rules that need to be set up. Again, the key is reference and amount. This one has a date and amount component to it. And again, date and amount can work. Typically, it works on ones that have fewer transactions per day, and it works on ones where the transactions tend to be unique. But if you're a business that I sell package A, and for everybody, package A is $59.95, well, then you're going to have a whole bunch of $59.95s coming in on a certain day, on any given day. So this won't work. Again, key is try to get a reference number recorded in that payment reference field, where if you're writing the integration that brings these things into the system.
So Chuck, there's also a question: in case of a card payment declined due to expired credit card date, does it capture details here or show up reason for decline?
So a declined transaction would never make it this far. A declined transaction should not make it through the payment process. So kind of back to the original diagram there, it really wouldn't make it to either half of this equation. So a declined card is never going to get recorded as a payment, nor is it going to show up in your settlement.
And then just one more, Chuck. Would they manually upload the files, or is the connection established?
The answer there is we can be as sophisticated as your provider. So far, we found very few providers that can set a file out on an SFTP site and have us download it. They usually have to go onto a portal and run some sort of report. But for the ones that can do that, we have a SFTP download that we can do, and we do that for ones that support it. We are also actively looking at APIs. So some of the bigger providers, Stripe and Square, they do support APIs to download these payouts or settlements, and we're actively investigating those as well.
Just one more follow-up question, or second question. Are they matching batches to bank deposits or a detailed transaction report to bank deposits?
So we're kind of do it in 2 steps. So this is typically a detailed statement you're getting in that is matching to detailed payments that were recorded. And then as part of that process, we calculate either a gross deposit down here or a net deposit down here. And that is what's eventually being matched to the bank deposit. So typically when we're setting up regular bank rec, not credit card rec, we're just recording whatever they sent us because that is what they deposit in our account. And we push the offset to this bank account. So this should basically zero it out every day. Because if we're getting the settlement right, again, the key is that you're getting a statement that ties to this eventual settlement. And if not, this is sometimes where we spend some of the analysis time is having conversations with this gateway, especially when you get into retail. Are they breaking it up per store? Or are they breaking your statement up per store? Or are they breaking your deposit up per store or per till or per tender type? If so, and if the gateway is doing it separately on your statement than they're doing in your deposit, it makes it very, very tough to have an automated system that ties out. So the answer is this is a transactional level compare, but it should generate an offset, a deposit that ties to the deposit that you got into your bank account as well. So you're kind of doing it in two steps. And again, this step is usually pretty easy, and it's just a mapping rule in our bank rec that you record the transaction and push the offset over here. So your regular bank account is always correct because whatever got deposited. So you just simply record that. Then the really reconciliation of the credit card's all done here. So again, keep that noise out of your depository account. Okay, it looks like that maybe answered that. So back to this. Again, if you're familiar with bank rec, a lot of this should look familiar, but so default matching rules. When you set up the format, the thing that's a little bit different about CC Recon is, do you want us to generate those virtual lines? So again, a lot of times you'll get a statement in from a provider that looks like, let me just kind of squish this down, it'll be easier to talk about. So you get a statement in from a provider that looks like this. It's just a data dump. So generating a fee line or generating a deposit line, basically on import, it generates these virtual lines, which makes this basically a zero balance account, which is what you want to do. So you set these up, whether we need to generate this or whether it's already in there. Again, most of these don't have a great way to kind of calculate this up and then generate a net deposit. Net deposits are, of course, a little bit more tricky than a gross deposit. Some of these have separate markups versus fees. I think Adyen is one in particular that does that. But when you assign these, when you do this, you can assign it a transaction type. When you assign it a transaction type, well, then you can act on those transaction types when they come in. So if you are adding up the fees, you can write a rule for fees that says whenever a fee comes in, record it to this corresponding account here. So this is, again, a D365 bank transaction type that you would set up for credit card fees. So transactions comes in, whatever matches can match. Hopefully, again, if it's kind of a sealed system on most of these are pretty sealed systems where somebody's picking an amount and paying for it. So you don't tend to get like amounts that are incorrect. Again, the duplicate piece, hopefully you're resolving by getting good reference numbers in there. I'm going to go to the process credit card, then we'll look back at the questions in the chat here. But the process credit card, this is where it ends up. So it imports the statement. Let me just kind of go back and reset the screen. I already picked one. So you come into this screen. So any statement that would reconcile on its own won't be here. A lot of times these are going to come in and not reconcile right away because the deposit's not been recorded yet. But once the deposits, it should catch up. So we click all here and click a statement. And normally we'd expect it to look something like this, where basically it recorded your fees. It matched all the transactions that were regular credit card. If there was a chargeback or whatever, those might show up here red, and you could walk through those by going to this transaction reconciliation screen. And then however you want to record your chargeback, you could just record that in this new journal section. This is the deposit transfer. Again, this is how we'd really kind of expect it to come in most days, where it matches most things, generates the fees, and then the deposit transfer, it's just waiting for that deposit to come in your depository bank account and match to it. Again, hopefully there to help you work through that very quickly. If that does show up, you can just click match transactions and it'll go through and match that up for you. If you have a lot of credit card statements, you can click match all and it'll go through that process for everything. So again, process the credit card, part process, part product. There's a couple key pieces. It's really more about making sure that your feed from both your gateway and if it's not our credit card advantage, if your feed's coming in from an outside source for the credit card payments itself, just making sure that those things align. So we spend usually more time up front on just making sure that we have good feeds coming in, because then the credit card recon itself gets works a little better. Two questions I see in chat here on the credit card rec functionality. Does it work for your clients who has the one voucher parameter turned off? No, this does not work for the one voucher turned off because it's creating a bank-to-bank transaction. You could have this create some other type of transaction. So the way I had it set up here is deposit transfer. It would create a bank-to-bank transaction, and that bank-to-bank transaction requires that one voucher. Microsoft has threatened to take away that one voucher option for a long, long time. We've checked with them regularly, and they still don't really have a great plan to replace turning that off in that specific bank-to-bank case. So if you want to have that on, basically what happens then is you can record it in two parts. So I guess the answer is to do it as I showed it on the screen originally. This is a bank to bank. So then you would need it on. The other way to record this is basically you can make a rule in your bank reconciliation that says record it to here and then some ledger account, the offset being some ledger, which will work with one voucher on. And then you can make another rule in your gateway bank rec or your credit card rec that says record the fee and then go to that same ledger account. So basically they offset each other. So it's a little bit more, it's a two-step process versus a one-step process, but with one voucher off, you can make it work. It just won't work the way I've shown it here. It'd be a two-step where both the bank side and the credit card side are both recording the fee and the offset to the corresponding bank accounts, and then the ledger account as an offset. So yeah, bank to bank, the way I have it shown, that would be problematic if you had that one voucher on, but then again, you just need to set this up different. Instead of being bank to bank, be bank to ledger here and bank to ledger here, and then the ledger would net out to zero. So there's a question on what's the difference between match all and match on this screen. So match transactions is going to work on whatever statement that you have. If you don't have a statement in context here, you can't do match transactions. It won't light up. Match all, this is going to go across whatever filters you have. So if I want to do it for everything in my system, even across legal entities, I can take this out. I can click match all. It's going to go across all open statements in all legal entities that I have permission to. If I have just the bank account in here, well, now it's only going to look across that Eddie and bank account and do match all across those. So match all is across all these filters. I should say all transactions that fit these filters. And then match transaction is always in the context of a statement. There we go. Any other questions? There was one on Canadian credit card providers. I don't know if we've done this with the credit card. Our credit card advantage product historically has been pretty North America based. So So we have some Canadian clients there. I'm not sure if we have Canadian clients that also use the credit card recon or not, but the same rules apply. Basically, are they getting in a statement that corresponds to a deposit? If the answer is yes, then credit card recon is probably going to be a good fit. Any other questions that I missed? If I missed something in chat along the way, please just
So
resubmit
what
it.
if you have multiple deposit bank accounts? Is a question there?
Yep.
Not
So if you have
sure.
multiple, yeah. So if you have multiple depository bank accounts, um, basically you would have multiple setups on the setup here. So if you have multiple depository bank accounts, you're typically going to have different mids here, and you would set up different accounts for those. If you're not getting them all the same place, otherwise, I think you would get very confusing results in here to try to push multiple deposits the same way. So I think if you have multiple depository accounts here, you'd have, an add-in USMF and an add-in USRT bank accounts there as well. There's a question that got submitted, Tina, on P card.
Okay. So concur P cards, if they are approved and recorded or approved and coded in your third-party system, we would bring those in the same way we did the file today as a expense or a general journal that hits expenses. The offset could either be a ledger account or a vendor account. And then as long as Concur can provide that file, we can bring that in. Same with the statement. If they can provide a CSV or a flat file for the credit card statement, we would bring that in as well and use that to reconcile the transactions that we recorded throughout the month. So it's be as long as they can provide those files, which I know Concur can provide at least the first file, the recording file, because I've done that a couple of times, but with the statement, I'm not sure. So as long as they could get, I'm not sure if you're using their credit card as well, and if you are, if they can provide that statement in a CSV or Excel file, we could bring that in, and then that would be used to reconcile. Okay. Any other questions? I think we got everything and that was put in the chat previously, but if we didn't, if we missed yours, just let us know. You can go ahead and retype it and we'll get to it.
Yeah, there was a question earlier about what's kind of the features in or in PayFabric or Bank Fabric today that require Bank Fabric. So the P card you just saw, if you went to the webinar last week, the payment remit automation, if you didn't, like I said, Jennifer has an email. You can send an email there to get that link from last week. But the payment remit automation, which speeds up your cash application using remit advices in your email, that goes through Bank Fabric today. Many of you probably, even if you aren't on Bank Fabric, you're using Bank Fabric Library to do your file formatting for APEFT. That the new format development is all being done there as well. That's done in Bank Fabric Library. Trying to think if there's other features. I know for the BC product for Business Central, a lot of that's been done through Bank Fabric only as well. Any other last minute questions in chat? So submit them or raise a hand, and I guess submit them, not raise a hand. If not, Jennifer and Kelly can wrap it up.
Well, thank you for your time today. We will send out an email with a link to the recording. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to sales@sksoft.com and we will get those answered for you right away. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody.
And hope to see some of you next, is it next week or a week after? So
Yes.
all right. Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.